Hello everyone, welcome to another Doris Success Coaching webinar. And give me one moment here, I'm just going to put up our presentation screen. Let me share my desktop first, give me 1 second. And while I'm sharing this, for those of you who are joining, oops. Give me one moment here. I was working on another technical challenge before jumping onto this, so I need to reset the slide to the beginning. Okay, there we go. All right. So for those of you who are just joining, if you could note the sticky chat on the right-hand side, it will show a message that explains where to go to post messages for this broadcast. And give me one moment here. I'm not seeing the screen I want, so let me just go back and do this again. There we go. Hold on one moment. There we go. Okay. So my name is Dora Tarver, and I want to thank you for joining Dora's Success Coaching. As I'm waiting for the screen to load here, we will be going over demystifying duration, units, and work in Microsoft Project. So bear with me one moment here. Let me just, as a quick workaround, let me escape from this and just show the presentation this way. I think you guys can see the screen now. What I'd like to share with you is, for those of you who are joining for the first time, on the right-hand side there's a link to our Facebook group, and if you go to the Facebook group, we have an administrator standing by who will allow you to get into this private group, and once you're in, you'll see that there's a recent post that I posted today. What I'd like you to do is just come in and say hello, introduce yourself, and all questions and comments for today's webinar should be posted here. So I'll just make a note here in Facebook. I think you can see this. And this is where you should reply with your questions or comments as we go through this. Okay? So going back to the presentation, let me just see if I can get this full screen one more time. Hold on one moment. All right, so it looks like it's taking its time to load for some reason. What we'll do is we'll ignore that, and I'll just show you the presentation from here. So basically, today, we're going to go over duration, units, and work. And let me just actually go back to the camera because I want to speak to you one-on-one about the importance of duration, units, and work. So here we are. All right, so I work with a lot of different people to help them be successful with Microsoft Project and with other management challenges that we have. And just for those of you who don't know, I've been using Microsoft Project literally since it came out. And I have a lot of experience. I enjoy helping people like you be successful. But one of the things that I've noticed is a lot of people get somewhat confused when they go into Project and they notice that they enter the duration for a task or the work for a task, or if they have a resource that they put in, and they notice that the values for those change. So there's a reason for that. Project is calculating things in a certain way, which we're going to go over. But it's important for you, if you're going to use Project, to have an understanding of how duration, work, and units are functioning in Microsoft Project. So I invite you to post any questions you have as I walk through this presentation in the Facebook chat. And I'll try and answer your questions. I'll pause a few times during this presentation to see if anyone has any questions related to what I just said. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump back into the actual slides that I put together for you. All right, so let me try one more time for full screen mode here, see if it picks up. Bear with me one moment as I'm, for some reason, having a technical challenge today. All right, it's not picking up soon enough, so I'll go back to what's inside here. All right, so I'm going to page through the slides. As I mentioned, duration, units, and work are very important to understand in Microsoft Project. If you understand how duration, units, and work function in Microsoft Project, then you'll be able to correctly assign resources. And this is very important. By the way, I will post this presentation so you'll have access to it, and you'll also have access to the replay of this video. Now, just to break things down very simply, the question is, what is the relationship between duration, unit, and work? It's important to understand that relationship so that you can actually manage your project schedule successfully. So consider duration as a continuance in time. In other words, there are days, weeks, or months that a task can exist. Units are a percentage that a resource is allocated. So for example, a resource may be 50% allocated on one task and 25% allocated on another. Okay? And work. Consider work as the amount of effort it takes to actually do something. And in this example here, I basically mentioned a task can take 16 hours to complete. That's the effort. You speak to your subject matter experts, they give you an estimate on how long it takes to complete a task, and that would be their work. Okay? Now the way project works is it is simply using basic algebra. And before I get into that, let me just whip over to project. This is Project 2010, and I just wrote down some examples just so you understand. As most of you already know, when you have a task, you assign resources to it, and you can insert the duration column, the work column, and you can assign what percentage a resource is allocated. You've probably seen that when you add or remove resources, it impacts what you see here. Other things change. They recalculate. Likewise, when you change the number of work hours or the number of days, project will recalculate. So let's look at what it's doing here. So project is following some basic algebra. And what that means is duration is work divided by units. Okay, project will calculate duration based on work divided by units. So for example, if you have a 40-hour work week and your resource is 50% allocated, then the duration would be 80 hours. Okay? For work, the algebra on that is work is duration times units, which means that if you have a task that's 5 days long and your resource units are allocated at 40%, then it would take 2 days of work to complete that. And how project calculates units, that is work divided by duration. And let me just scroll down here 1 second here. Excuse me. So work divided by your duration, and in this example we have if you're working 40 hours, if the effort is 40 hours and it's over a 160-hour period of time, then the resource units would be calculated at 25%. Okay? So does anyone have any questions related to what I just said? Let me check our Facebook chat and see if there are any questions here. I'm going to refresh my page. All right. I don't see any questions at the moment, but if you have any questions, again, feel free to come back here and post your question. All right, moving on. So, as I mentioned, project uses rules to calculate duration, unit, and work. And how it works is it first will calculate duration, then it will calculate work, and then it calculates the resource units. And if you set the duration and work, you'll get the resource units. Okay. Now, another way to think about this equation is if you consider that if you provide the work and the units, meaning in project, if you type in that the task is taking, let's say we have task D here. So if you provide the work and you type in, oh, this will take 16 hours to complete. Okay, if you provide that information and you provide the units, in other words, you have a resource that's allocated at 50% or whatever it is. Let's say you type in a resource or you select a resource. I'm just going to make up a name here. I'm going to say the resource is Mark. If I type in the name, by default, he's going to be 100% allocated. If I double click on this task and go to the resource sheet, I can change his allocation to, let's say, 50%. So he's not working 100% on this task, but he's working on other things as well. So now you can see he's allocated 50%. So what happens is, if you have defined the work and you've defined the resource units, project will calculate how long it takes to complete. Okay? If you provide the duration in units, project calculates the work. Okay? And this is the formula here. And if you provide the duration and work, project calculates the units. And last but not least, if you leave the units blank, like when I first just entered that resource, project uses 100% of the resource's maximum units, which by default is 100%, unless you've defined that resource to have a different resource unit allocation. All right. Now, let me go back to the Facebook group and see if anyone has any questions based on what I've said so far. I know this is a lot of information. And let me hit refresh. I don't see any questions here. Let me go back out into, let me take screen sharing off. Okay, hello. Let me see who's out there. So we have a few people. Ted, Omar, Mohammed, we have Jihad, we have Gerbenkish, and Eric. Let me ask you, since you're out there, do you have any questions for what I've just said? If you do, if you could go to the Facebook group and post it there. And if you are having any challenges getting into the Facebook group, you know, just post your challenge here in the chat, and my administrators, one of our administrators, will get back to you. All right, so let me just check this again, see if anyone has any questions. All right, I don't see any. Okay, so then let me go back to the presentation. Here we are, 1 second. All right. All right, so now when you're calculating your resources, it's important to also look at how the task type and effort-driven variables impact your resource calculations. And since my goal is to make these webinars very brief, because I know everyone has a tight schedule, what I'm going to do is create a addendum video that I'll post up later today. And what I'll do is, if you check the Facebook files for this video, I'll show you where it'll be located. When you go to the Facebook group, when you join and go to the Facebook group, simply look up here in the top right-hand corner, you'll see Files. And when you click on Files, you'll see a bunch of different files. I've already uploaded past webinars that we had. The current webinar that we're on and the additional addendum that I was just talking about for the effort-driven and task type will be posted up there. There'll be 2 videos. Because there's a lot of information, I don't want to take up too much of your time. But in this video, I'm going to share with you how to bypass the project calculation rules by setting the task type. And I'll also share with you how to add meetings that do not follow the effort-driven scheduling method. Okay? You can have tasks in your schedule which include meeting with different groups of people, and you'll want to know how to enter those tasks so that they are calculated properly. All right. Now, last but not least, before we end for today, I want you to tell me about yourself. I'd like to know more about your needs, and how I'm working with people is all you have to do is look in our Facebook group for the pinned post at the top of the Facebook group, and you'll see something that looks very similar to this image right here. Let me go there right now. What you're looking for is the pinned post, and there's a survey that I've created. And if you fill out the survey, it just gives me a little bit of information about you. I will contact you and we'll do a free one-on-one coaching session. So again, if you go to the Facebook group, which I've posted in the sticky chat here, and if you look under pinned post, you'll see 1 and 2. 2 here has a link to a survey. So go ahead and complete that survey so that I can get your contact information and reach out to you. And I'll spend some time learning about you and what your needs are. Let me go back to the presentation here and turn the screen sharing off. And let's see if we have any other requests in Facebook. Any questions before I end this webinar? Let me refresh Facebook. Give me one moment. All right, I don't see any questions. Great. So I guess everyone understands this. It's an important principle in terms of knowing how to work with duration units and work. Again, what I'll do is I'm going to post up an additional video that you'll have access to if you join our Facebook group, which will walk you through how task type and effort-driven will impact your resource calculations as well. Okay? So thank you for joining, and I'll see you in the next webinar. Have a good day.